And who is Don Morris?
Don Morris is a guy from Adelaide, now living in Newcastle and enjoying Speedway.
Now, I've known of your name for a long time, and the earliest I can remember you was from 2012 in Maryborough that had an Australian titles that we won't really talk about, but I remember you were on with Darren Caife there. So how long have you been riding at the moment as a passenger?
As a passenger, I started when I was 16 back at home in Adelaide at Wright Park, back in the early 71, 72 I think it was. And riding with an accomplished race team there by the Atherton brothers. There was Tom and Gordon Atherton, and I used to ride with Gibson Atherton. Gordon and I got together also I teamed up and we came up to Newcastle, had a big get together with a concrete wall that didn't really agree with us, and I had a 10-year break after that.
So with being a passenger, so how did it come about? Not many people know what bike speedway is in general, let alone to be a speedway sidecar passenger or rider. So how does that come about?
Well, it's funny. I don't really think many people over this side of the world, New South Wales, have heard of the Findham Skid Kids. And I'm one of the riders that used to ride a normal push bike with no brakes and used to race them. I've always wanted to get into Speedway, and it didn't help with my grandparents living on Colin Street, and the back fence actually faced straight into the Wright Park track, so I sort of had it in the blood a little bit then, and an opportunity came one year when I was racing at Skid Kids with Gibson Atherton. He had one of his sons racing there, and because he had a girl passenger on the back, Glennis Horner, and he ended up getting me on the back, and that was history. I keep doing it.
So with that, what style of engines and bikes, frames and things like that were there at that time?
The old days like that, you had your normal motorbike frames with welded bits and pieces as for sidecar to be welded onto the frame, and a few alterations that way. When I came back after the 10-year break, you had your low lines, which is like a little bit like a grass tracker, which was still an arranged heavy frame, but that's about all. And now you've got the frames is what you've got now.
What's it been like to see the evolution with the sidecars? Has it been something that you could, as the years were going on, you could see it going that way, or was it one of those things where no one really knew until someone created it and you went, oh, why didn't we think of that?
Well, I think the question is correct. With anything, in any sport, you've got to develop. The trouble was with Speedway, as far as I knew, it wasn't developing real quick till a person by the name of Russell Mitchell redesigned the Speedway frame, fiberglass and all that, and of course history's made.
And I think it's interesting to touch on the Mitchell side of things, because he's someone that his name has been constant in the sport, but I distinctly remember watching him race at the Brisbane exhibition grounds in the 90s as a child, and even then I don't know why I was drawn to him. And now he seems to be a legend, but is always still evolving. Is he someone that you think can be a driving force still?
Yes, because he's got some really good ideas. If they work, they're pretty good. But with everything that's got to be good, there's a failure. So he tries everything and just develops from that.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Because these sidecars, yes, they are purpose-built and all that, but they're also not mass-produced on a production line. So it's a highly custom sport, and even in the time I've been involved, it's changed dramatically in that short period. So What's it like now to be on? We're in 2021 now. What's it like to be on as a passenger now?
You definitely notice the different horsepower that performs off some of these frames, and of course, as a spectator, as you know yourself, Dave, is that sidecars aren't slow as what they used to be back in the old days.
And that's the thing. I think that it's with racing. It's always has to be lighter, faster, things like that. I just cannot believe how fast they are, and we're coming off the back of the 2021 New South Wales titles in Tamworth, and I was completely shocked by the speed. So what was that like? What is a track like that for you? What's that like to be on the back of a bike with?
It's a thrill, and with Timmy, riding with Timmy a couple of times, even though Tamworth track I think's about 400 or maybe just over 400, is that with the long straights, the corners come up really quick. When I've ridden on other bikes, say like on Gilman, Mildura, it's a different kettle of fish.
You didn't go into the Speedway solos initially?
Well, funny you should say that. As a young lad at 16, that's what I was gearing up to do, but I was brought up with a single mother with a brother and a sister, and didn't have the money and and the contacts. But like I said, that Gibbs at Atherton asked me in the early days, and like I said, I got on a sidecar and haven't looked back since.
So we've been gearing up to do this interview for a little while now, and you know, something I really enjoy doing is to look back on people's careers or their life in general. We talked about injuries, and it's probably something we shouldn't focus on as much, but it is a part of it. So I think we should talk about it. And we used to have the joke that it doesn't matter, the nurses are hot and the hospital food tastes good, but it's not that experience at all, is it?
No. I don't really enjoy hospital food, but some of the nurses, they take the pain away, so it's quite good. But the best idea is to keep out of the hospitals the best you can.
Yeah, and I tend to find that most sidecar people in particular are very stubborn in the fact that they don't want to go to hospital, but you have in your career. So what is it like in some of your bigger crashes? Like, run me through one of your crashes that very much stands out for you.
I suppose the one that stands out for me the most is the one that you and I have talked about, where I had the accident at Tamworth and broke 17 ribs and punctured my lung, where the bike landed on top of me.
So what do you remember in that race? Like, what was going on?
Well, at the time, I remember coming out of the sidecar corner 2 at Tamworth, riding with Michael Farrell's Jr. And we come out of the corner quite nicely. Had another bike come on the inside of us, took the front wheel out. Both of us come off. The bikes uncontrollably hit the fence, gone up in the air and landed on top of me. Meanwhile, I'd just been sliding on my back thinking, yeah, this has got to stop sooner or later, because what I'm doing is looking at the sky. And by the time I stopped, I had to ask the ambulance lady, why have I got a pain in my ribs or on my chest? Because nothing's hit me. It just happened like that, and 2 weeks later, I was in ICU in the Tamworth Hospital.
So with that particular thing, did you get knocked out, or what was the deal? It just happened so fast?
It happened so fast. Like I said, I've come off and just sliding on my back along the back straight. If I passed out, it was just for a quick second like that. but like I said, all I remember when I'm laying on my back and the St. John's and all that were there is that I could feel a pain right there, so and that's virtually it.
So you were telling me it was very, very serious. So when did you know you were in a lot of trouble?
When I felt the pain in the middle of my chest, it just didn't feel right. I felt like I was winded, and that's all I was thinking. But I really couldn't stand up at the time because I thought if I just lay here, and as you do when you're winded, you just lay there and just relax. This particular time, the pain didn't disappear.
And with that, so do you remember going to the hospital? Like obviously it was an ambulance deal, or was it a helicopter thing?
No, just an ambulance deal at Tamworth. You're only most probably 15 minutes, maybe half an hour away from the track, because the hospital's in Tamworth and not where the track is, which is a couple of k's out of town. But yeah, it was by memory, I think it was a siren job, so obviously they thought it was pretty serious. And then once we got there, it was just X-ray after X-ray after X-ray to the early hours of the morning.
And the problem is with hospitals, and they have a job to do, and I'm very thankful for them in my life, but it is a thing that when you're in trouble, you are scared, you don't want to go to the hospital, but as men we don't talk about that sort of thing.
No, we don't.